Hi.
Uh,
We need to have an intro figured out.
it will be so good right here. we 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 need someone to score something for us. We should ask.
I've been collecting different song bites that I'm like, oh my god, this would be a
Ooh, okay.
fun like little like homage until we have like real score. But like something along the lines of like Bindi the Jungle Girl, Belize and Sam, Heartbreak Films.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We are going to today be talking about Princess Diaries 1 and 2. I'm very excited for that. I don't know if you could tell, I tried to like dress. I did like sparkles on my eyes and stuff like that. I was trying to do more of the princess vibe, except for my hair, because I did not have time to straighten it. But yeah.
I almost rolled up to this video without any makeup on because like I was just like no, and then I put makeup on and I was like, oh my god,
I love it.
I am I am me. I have to ask. I just have to ask. I want to just know like I just want to know personally for myself if we can just go like a one, two, three, say it, okay?
Okay.
Which is your preferred one or two? One, two, three,
Well,
one.
it's gotta
Yeah.
be one.
Yeah, for sure. I recently how what when was the last time you saw these films?
Well, actually, I was about to say it was funny that you told me you were looking into the second one again because I was looking at the first one today for a little bit um, to rewatch because I was like, oh, I know the second one a lot. I mean, I know them both really well. I think the last time I watched them was since I've come back here. So in the past month and a half, I've watched both of them.
Wow. See, I hadn't seen the second one since it came out in theaters in 2004.
Did you see it in theaters?
I saw it in theaters, of course I did. I remember when the posters were in like the middle of like the mall everywhere, and I was like, "Oh my god, we have to, we
Um,
have to see this movie."
no, I remember there was a point in college where I found it in the Michael's $5 bin, Princess Diaries 2. I was like, yes, of course, that's worth $5.
So I was 9 at the time. So the last time I saw that movie, 16, 15 years ago.
You didn't. It's so funny to me because I'm just like, I feel like same thing with like Grease 1 and Grease 2, and you're like,
Yes.
have you seen these? I'm like, a couple months ago, I don't know. And I feel like when Twilight comes around, it's gonna be the same situation where you're like, when did you last see us? And I'm like, last week I saw Breaking Ball.
In like 2008. I think 2008 was the last time I saw these movies. But like, I kind of like that about our commentary on these films is the fact that like you come from it from a very different perspective than I'm coming from it. Something I would like to talk about towards the end of this is like longevity of films, like the shelf life of these films.
I was going to ask my big question at some point is going to be, which I guess I'll say it now, but we'll come back to it. I was going to ask you if it was to be made now, what do you think would need to be changed?
That's a later question. So let's talk about Princess Diaries 1. Let's talk about like what is the love in Princess Diaries 1. Well, let you first like plot summary.
Princess Diaries. We have the opening shot on San Francisco. I'm kidding.
I'm gonna kill you myself.
It does take place in San Francisco. It is centered around Mia Thermopolis and her mother. They live together, and she goes to private school with her best friend Lily and her best friend's brother Michael. They are not the most popular of kids at all. Mia has a lot of trouble with speaking up. She's very shy. She gets nervous easily. She's often seen as invisible. And then one day in comes her grandma from her father's side. She had lost her father about 2 months ago, and her grandma essentially drops the bomb on her that she is the up and coming princess of Genovia. So it just kind of turns her whole world upside down. It shows her dealing with popularity and the spotlight suddenly, and having issues with her friends over this, and trying to figure out whether or not she wants to essentially accept the role of Princess of Genovia.
Would you classify this as a romance film? What would you give this as a genre? I have my answer personally.
Ooh, I guess it's one of those things where I almost wonder if this is almost cheating because I do think it is a romance film in a way, but I almost wonder if it's a different category when it's meant towards teens and children in a way. So
May I dive in? Okay, this is my thought process on The Princess Diaries 1. I think it is most definitely a romance film. So answer yes for me. that I think the romance isn't, because there are men in this film that she has little flings with, but I don't think that's the inherent form of the love. I think the love is rooted in her self-love. Mia has to like come to terms with who she is by the end of the film in order to live out her destiny. You know, like there is, like, there's the pop and kiss, and there's like the dating and like the being manipulated and all this stuff. Like that, I think, is the root of the love. Is that Mia has to fully love herself, which is why I think it's so iconic. Right at the end of the film, she gives like the big like, "My name is Mia Amelia Leonette Thermopolis, Princess." Like, you know what I mean? She has to like fully declare like, "I am who I am. I know who I am, and I love who I am, and I'm here to accept that role." But I think the reason why you can't really classify this as a romance film is because it's a coming of age. I think the whole concept that Disney and this novelist that wrote the book that this movie is based off, because it is an adaptation, like the whole concept is like, before you can even think of love, you have to love oneself. Like, let me just like talk about like the different relationships that are that like come up in this film. Like, you have the concept of like the absentee father. The father passes away. She never grew up with him. She feels so betrayed because of these stories and these like, and this like whole life that she didn't experience. But there's still love. There's the absentee father, but he always loved her. There's the single mom who would give anything for her, who like constantly loves her and is looking for love in her own regard. You know what I mean? That she starts up a little flirtationship with the math teacher, and
Well,
she finds love. What?
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I do have something to say about the teacher.
Go, 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 go.
It's very interesting to me the way in which.
Hold on, hold on. I'm just, mom. We're filming right now. Pero todo esos you know what I mean? It's the quiet on set. I've noticed that no one fully comprehends. You know what I mean? They're like, I am being quiet. I'm like, no, like walking around is not quiet on set. Continue.
It's I think it's just interesting overall if we look at every single male that's been shown in her life that's not romantic, but just the three males who are most present in her life. Her father, who's never around but sends her letters and sends her gifts on every birthday who she's never met. The teacher who comes into her life and is he's kind of there in the second one too, so I guess we can talk about him then. But is also a good teacher, and there's a scene or two where he looks out for her in school. Um, and then essentially her quote unquote grandfather, in a way, Joe, who was actually with her for a majority of the time and there for her when she cries and actually, calls her forward a lot. But I think it's interesting with the teacher because when I was looking at it today, I was like, why does that happen? Like, why do we need the mother to go and have this weird flirtation with the teacher that's so unnecessary? And then I realized I think it's a really good way of showing us how little the mother realizes her romantic relationships can affect her daughter, both with her actual father and now with the teacher, where she's not like, Mia literally needs to tell her, do you not understand that I will be made fun of for the rest of my life if you date my teacher? And that thought had never occurred to her. The same thing with this, when she leaves the father and chooses to go live on her own with her daughter, she didn't really think about how that's going to affect Mia in any way whatsoever. It's just that that's what she wants.
Oh my god, can I vibe? Can I riff off of this?
Oh.
Oh my god, I'm so happy that we even touched upon this topic. So, yes, I agree completely. From Mia's perspective of that story, she's very much like, wow, my mother has no realization of like the domino effect that she's given my life. Like if we could have stayed in Genovia. We could have been in Genovia and I could have been raised this princess. Like I could have had this incredible life and I would have never had to have been like bullied in school and just treated like garbage for all my life, or just felt like I was something when I was so much more. Like you robbed me of the experience of being something spectacular. And then there's the concept of like the whole teacher thing where it's like, wow, like did this really have to be the case? Like why do I still need more attention on me? But on my perspective of things, and I think it's just because like I come from a background where like my mother has dated my whole life. The reason why I love the fact that the mom has a thing with the teacher, first of all, I love the fact that the teacher's even involved in the story, because it's like the concept of daddy issues. Mia has daddy issues. It's just that the daddy issues she has aren't we typically see in film and TV, where it's like the dad is a deadbeat or like cruel to her. The older men in her life are like incredibly kind to her and are like paternal figures, you know? So Mia never has to have these daddy issues. We'll get to like the blonde haired douchebag in a moment, but like the reason why I love the fact that the mom has this thing with the math teacher is because I felt like it was such a like a little subtle thing for us as children, because I think we were that demographic when it came out, to watch, to know that like it's okay to like walk away from something that made you feel like you couldn't be who you are, and it's okay to find love in your 30s and 40s. Like that's the one thing about the whole franchise, and I'll mention it in the second one too. That's the one thing in the whole franchise that like I liked it when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, I love that Disney did this, that Disney like subliminally showed young girls and boys like there is such a thing as falling in love past 20. She's a single mom, not out of like wedlock or like out of like, oh, necessity. She's a single mom because she's empowered, because she's like, I want to be an artist. I don't want to be queen. I don't want to be a princess. Like, I'm sorry, Mia. Like, I get it, but I also have to live my life, you know? Because then how sad would it be if the alternative story was that she stayed in Genovia and like was just depressed? You know what I mean?
Hello. Hello, cat. Hello,
This
Paco.
is podcast.
Well, it's very fitting since we do a Fat Louis in the in the movie, but
Oh my god! This is the thumbnail. This is the post of the thumbnail. He posed.
I was gonna say I won't delve into whether or not the choice was correct as to whether or not, because obviously there would be no story, blah blah. I do agree that there's a lot of things that the mother is doing that's a good thing, and I think that she's being selfish in a way where she should be, but to a certain degree, then it brings up the question of, okay, you didn't have to live in Genovia, why wasn't she ever visiting, and that sort of thing, and
Yeah.
why wouldn't she go to high school there if she was going to eventually rule the kingdom.
Gone to boarding school in Genovia.
Just interesting to me because I was like, that to me, showing that teacher not only sends that message, which is great, but it also just tells me why I would believe that a mother would never tell her daughter um, that she wasn't a princess, and why a mother would take her away from that. And I was like, that shows me how oblivious she is about the effects of her decisions on her daughter.
On the flip side of that, it's like if she chooses to be the princess, I mean, she chooses to be the princess when she turns 16, like the mom wasn't blindsided by Clarice showing up. You know what I mean? The mom knows that Clarice is going to show up, that like 16 is the big number. You know what I mean? If she.
It's actually 18. It's because
Oh,
the father dies that it becomes 16. They had always planned for it to be when she's 18 that she finds out. So she is, I don't know how much she knew that the grandmother was coming and how blindsided she was or not, but she planned for it to be even later in Mia's life.
but I think the point of the matter being is like, for me, I kind of understand the mom. I don't understand the secrecy. The secrecy I don't get. Like that's one of the reasons why like she is a flawed character. She has this huge giant lie to her kid. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I understand the mom because she's like, okay, if my daughter does choose to take on the crown, then the rest of her life, the rest of her infinity, she's gonna be queen. You know what I mean? She's gonna be a royal. She's gonna be treated differently. She's gonna be treated special. You know? But these like the prime years of your life where if you're growing up spoiled you can become this horrible person. She wanted to give her daughter like the one sense of what being normal would be like that she experienced, you know, like a normal childhood, friends, not having people treat you nicely just because like, oh, you're Mia Thermopolis, I have to be nice to you.
Keep in mind that she's not meant to, at that age, in any plan was it ever meant that she was supposed to become a ruler. Her father was supposed
Yeah.
to probably rule until she's like in her 40s, and then she'd probably take over.
But like just think about like this conversation we're having right now, how like we're literally just focused on one like the side character right now, and look at how deep and meaningful every decision the side character made was. This script is so freaking good. So we got the mom, we're good, we're closing the mom. So we have the father, we have the teacher, we have the Joe character who like is like, I'm gonna take a bullet for you, whatever. He perfectly is what he is, and I guess we'll get to that better like when we get to Claire's.
Words of wisdom. Can we just talk about that in case it doesn't somehow come up, because it literally is he literally says the entire point of the film, which is that nobody can make you feel inferior without your permission.
It's an Eleanor Roosevelt quote.
And the fact that he just has that in his back pocket is amazing.
You know what? As we're talking about this, that's something I also really love. The fact that they have like the fact that her grandfather and that her father are not in the picture, but they make sure to give her paternal figures. That they make sure to show her that like not all men are bad.
Yeah.
Like that's not what this movie is about. This movie isn't about that. Which brings me to my next. This movie so perfectly includes the fuck boy. The fuck boy. The typical traditional fuck boy. Like this is the this is the code. If you were gonna copy and paste, if you wanted to create a fuckboy for your script, I would point you in the direction of this freaking movie. And then on the flip of him, so you've got the fuckboy, like perfectly like nothing good about him person. And then you have the best friend. You know what I mean? You have the best friend like that. Oh my god, should have been us. And I love that they have the duality of those two men, and I love that they're both figures in her life. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So let's rip them apart, because I've got things to say
Yes!
with those men.
Yes!
We can start with the obvious one, which is Josh.
So how do we meet Josh?
I love the way we meet Josh. The fact that we meet him, well, we see him climbing in the beginning of the school, like in the entrance, which is, kind of how we meet him. But the way we really meet him is when he and Lana are kissing, and right away it snaps into Mia's fantasy kissing him.
And the song is Soft Kisses on a Summer's Day. Yeah, it's perfect. But I'm so happy they have the trope of the Josh. Like every good coming of age film needs a good Josh, you know? Would you say that Josh is the villain?
Um,
No.
okay, so I don't think that Josh is the villain. I don't think there's a clear antagonist that stands in her way, because if it is that the goal is for her to love herself, the only antagonist in that situation would be herself. And I think that the way that they do Josh also is that he's mean, but he's not obviously mean the way that Lana and the other girls are.
I think that's one of the things that I like most about his character is the fact that like it's the most realistic. He's not mean to her. If anything, he's nice to her. Like to her face, he's nice to her. He talks with her, he flirts with her, but it's because he knows that he can get her and it's fun for him. But we as society, as women, we are trained that when we see a man, we're like, oh, but like he's not mean to her. He is mean to her. Like using her, the whole thing, the whole bit in the kiss, like using her first kiss, dumping his girlfriend to get with her just because she's the princess. Mean. There's like a quote that's like, if he doesn't respect all women, he doesn't respect women.
I agree. Just to clarify, what I mean is that the way that the other girls are openly mocking Mia is not the same way that he's just tactical. That doesn't mean that he's not being mean. It's just being tactical about it.
I feel like Lana and the girls are kind of like the internal monologue of what Mia says about herself, you know? And she has to like kind of tell them to go F off and like overcome them in order to fully overcome like the insecurities within oneself.
I don't even really think much of, I don't remember Lana and the girls too much when I think of the movie compared
Really?
to, yeah, because I'm like, I know what they are, I know they do. They, to me, don't serve as much of a purpose as all the other characters do. Even though they are impactful in a lot of ways, and I agree with you, but it's just, yeah, they're like the inner voices of her head murmuring around kind of thing. So what about Michael?
So I'm gonna let you speak. Why you dislike him? Why he's not that great? I need you to go in. I need you to dummy proof this.
Okay, he starts out great, right? You see moments of him paying attention to Mia. He's offering to work at the shop more for her to get her car, all these things. It's so great. And then he just becomes just one of those things where it's like he really quickly just shuts her out and almost, gets upset with her when he never proper. So it's one of these things where it's like he does the, and this is a thing, because if you pay attention to it properly, then you can avoid dating these people, because these nice guys exist where they be the nice guy, and then they trick you into thinking that they're doing everything so nicely, and the minute that you mess up, they shut you out, they guilt you through everything, and they manipulate you into apologizing. So this is what he did. He asks her out, and she says, do you mean like a date? And he goes, no, and literally makes her sound like and feel like she's being stupid or ridiculous for even mentioning that it would be a date. So then if you do it that way, where you're not even having the proper bravery to say, yes, it's a date, like I'm asking you out, sort of thing, then you cannot get upset with her for canceling on you, because that is not fair. Because yes, she's going to cancel an non-existent offer for an actual offer for a date. That just makes logical sense. And then he shuts her out really quickly. He gets upset with her. He expects, like, he just doesn't talk to her anymore. And then he expects an apology from her before he even like comes through for her at the end. She apologizes multiple times to him until he forgives her and finally shows up at her door. He doesn't go and check on her after the blast on that she gets across like national news or whatever. He doesn't go and make sure that she's okay after that, or after what happened with Josh. Like, there are so many opportunities for him to put her feelings above his own, and he doesn't, because he's like being a little bitch and just being super butthurt about all of it. And it's a tactic that nice guys do, where they think they're owed something for being nice. So that's why I don't like Michael.
I really thought I was woke. I really thought I was woke, and then this conversation happened, and I ain't woke at all. Okay, so tune in a couple weeks, because we're gonna do the whole nice guy trope. We're gonna do the whole nice guy trope, and I just have to say, we'll go one little segue, and then I won't even finish the whole thought, but the sun and little fires everywhere
Yep.
is exactly what you're talking about. We're gonna come back, but we'll talk about that one day. Oh my god, I have nothing to even add to that. That was so good. She has to, like, oh my god, it's like this whole concept as we as a society. Again, remember the year that this was made? 2000 what? 2000. I think it was 2000. We as a society, like, praise men. We praise men for doing the bare minimum. The bare minimum. Like, oh, this person is a total douche magoosh. But this one is like, her friend. Why aren't you bending over backwards to marry him? Princess of Genovia. Like, what? No, next. Moving on. I don't like Michael now either. Oh my god. Oh, this is incredible. This is incredible. We had to do a whole segment on this. I'm so sorry. Continue.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that the archetype for the female protagonist in these movies has changed, but the male protagonist has changed a lot more drastically and a lot more helpfully, in my opinion.
Please, one day, we have to do like a full like marathon of like cringy chick flicks from the 90s. You will have a heart attack. Like this cat is having with me right now. He's so thirsty. He wants it.
Right. I mean, I think theirs came sooner, their progression, and then now it's the males that have progressed. That's really cool to see.
So let's talk about Lily. Let's talk about our homegirl. Talk about homegirl Lily.
Yeah, I'm always on the fence with Lily, because it's one of those things where it's like there's a lot of times where she's not a good friend to Mia, and then there are times where she does come through, so I get it in a sense. So it's one of those things where I'm like, there's some slack that you have to cut for her being a teen and being,
Can I talk about Lily?
Yeah,
Can I talk about Lily? You ripped apart Michael. Let's rip apart both siblings.
Yeah.
Mia should have just had a clean slate right after Princess Diaries 1. I'm sorry. Lily's opening sentence is like, I know your dad just died, but like, when are you gonna get over it? Like, Mia's opening stasis in this film is like the nice, sweet sidekick. Lily is not her sidekick. She is Lily's sidekick. What does Mia have going for her? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She's literally the wallflower to Lily. So the reason why Lily gets annoyed with her later on is because Mia starts to develop her own sense of personality and being. And she's not just around whenever Lily wants, and it pisses her off. Yes, Mia forgot about the radio show, and that was really fucked up. It was really fucked up. But Mia also had this one experience in life to go do something else, or like have princess training, or go on a date for the first time, or go to a party, or go to a gala, or like just become the version of herself that she was always meant to be. And the second that she fucks up one time, Lily writes her off as a bad friend. Like, I get it, we're watching the show and we're watching this movie and we're on the side of like, oh my god, like Mia, you're becoming a bad friend. She's never done anything wrong to Lily, like ever. Like ever. And the first opening beat of this film is my dad is dead. I just found out I have a grandma. I found out I have all this responsibility now. And what does Lily want? She's like, would you come on my show? That's the first thing she says when she finds out. She's like, well, will you come on my show? Is to use her. And then when she needs her, Lily's nowhere to be found. And Lily actually shames her. Lily slut shames her for what happened with the Josh guy. Lily's not there for her like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Lily just makes her feel like an idiot for it. That was her first kiss, Lily. You couldn't have just like taken a step outside of your body. Okay? And then there's that whole bit on top of the basketball courts where it's not like, that's the to be honest, that's like the inspiration, I would say, of like two friends fighting to get back together, because that's what that is. It's a fight that could have been a breakup, but it became a fight to get back together, you know, because they're the main couple of the story. And like, it's their whole stasis is being flipped over around. And the only reason I like Lily is because the second that Mia asserts herself, Lily has to then like figure out where she falls into that. Because now Mia, like what you said, you are not like, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. Okay? Michael can't make her feel inferior, even though he's constantly making her feel inferior. Her mother can't make her feel inferior. The student body cannot make her feel inferior. Lily, her best friend, who constantly puts her in the side character role, cannot make her feel inferior for the fact that she was never fucking meant to be that. And so that basketball court scene where they're having this big fight and Lily thinks she's doing something by really ripping her a new one. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you've been a really bad friend, Lily. I can't think of a single moment where you've been a good friend. The whole time. And Mia's so freaking like loyal. Like Mia's so loyal. Mia's so freaking loyal that she finally just like, Lily. And she cries and she has this big moment where she's like, she's not going to change. This is the person she is and she likes and she's becoming and she refuses. Because when Mia's crying in her car in the pouring freaking rain, no one of these people are there to save her. I don't think that Lily's a good friend.
Go off. I love it.
I don't think she's a good friend. I just don't.
I agree. And I honestly think that general consensus agrees with you that she isn't a good friend. I don't think I've met anyone who stands Lily in any of this. You know what I mean? And I think
the Lily stan comment.
right. And I think the only thing I will play devil's advocate, not because I disagree with you, but because I think that there are some moments where she is a good friend. And I do agree that Mia doesn't need her in her life. But I will put it a little bit into the perspective that Lily is going through, which is that her friend who has always been the dad thing is, this is me cutting a lot of slack, but that is her showing tough love. Lily is mainly showing tough love during a lot of this movie, where she's like, didn't that happen 2 months ago? I thought you gotten over that. It comes off the way she says it as in like a get over it, but and this is again me giving a lot of slack and everything, but I do think that's her way of asking like, are you not over that? Because I thought you had gotten over it, kind of thing. And it's not her trying to be unsympathetic. It's just her. I don't think she computes it. She's not an empathetic person. She just doesn't have empathy, and that's what her issue is. She's not empathetic, and she's never really needed to have empathy for Mia, aside from the idea that Mia is just always invisible, and that's what she's used to showing empathy to Mia for, and that's what she does show empathy to her. One of the opening things is like, someone saw Mia, and she's like, oh no, really? Like what? And and we see her shows empathy there more so than in the rest of the film, because that is something that she's used to being there for Mia for, and she's accustomed to it. Suddenly Mia starts coming back to school different. There's a limo, all these things, but she's not telling her what's going on. She gets anxious, feels out of control. That's why she goes off on her. And in her mind, it's validated because she has no idea what the situation is, and her best friend is lying to her. Obviously, there's reasons why the best friend is doing that, and we get to see that, but Lily has no idea what's going on behind the surface. And when she finds out, yes, she gets excited. And I do agree with you. She is using her by asking her on the show. In terms of the slut shaming, I will point fingers to the grandmother before I will point fingers to Lily on that, because Lily's just a kid and she's not going to necessarily know any better. Whereas if even the grandmother is the one that's like, so we'll get to the grandmother in a second too, she's not crystal perfect either. But the reason why I do like Lily is because she is the one that gets Mia to the final push. After Mia stands up to her and everything like that, she is the one that says, I want you to be a princess. Because Mia, it tells her first. Mia says, I don't even want to do it. And she's like, but I want you to be.
Be.
Yeah. And she literally,
I forgot. She goes, but I want you to be.
yeah, because she's like, you have the reach that I don't have. Like, I want to make a difference. That's why I have this TV show that I'm trying to like reach fans with and like talk about important things. That's why, like, she wanted to bring on a political figure. Like, yeah, popularity, whatever, that's cool, but she wanted to actually discuss something that's worth talking about. And then she finds out that her show reaches like no one and she can't make any difference and whatever. And like her friend can make the difference that she wants to be able to make. I can't remember what they talk about it in the second movie, what she goes on to study at Berkeley.
Yeah, I'm a master's student in Berkeley. But what you said really hit me in the concept of like, oh, that's such good character growth. Like she knows how to be there for Mia when Mia felt invisible. And then here's Mia being like, I don't want to even be, and she's like, no, I want you to be visible.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a lot of internal struggle happening with Lily because she's like doesn't know how to handle this new dynamic.
Right, exactly.
Because like the way her friend has been treating her is just like not at all Mia.
Right, exactly. So she's thrown off too. Like she doesn't handle it well, but she's thrown off too, and that's why like I don't because I think if she was like this the whole time, they wouldn't have been friends. That's not the kind of friendship they had. The issue is that we don't see much of the kind of friendship they have. So in our eyes, it's like, well, so Lily was always awful and Mia put up with it because Mia was shy. But that's not really the case. And I do really like that Lily at the end actually goes to the ball, like I mean, she's actually there for her the whole time with it, whereas Michael still has to show up. Like you couldn't have hitched a ride with your sister to the freaking ball.
This is an episode. This is an episode. We will the next episode what's the nice guy. We'll both pick like our favorite versions of the nice guy, like four. We'll watch these things and we'll talk about it. Okay, let's go on to Queen Clarice. Or as I like to think of it, how in the world did they get Julie Andrews?
How did they get our generation's Audrey Hepburn in a kids movie?
So Queen Clarice, here's my thing, Queen Clarice. I love her. I love her because she has a duty. You know what I mean? The same way that Lily's all tough love, so is Queen Clarice, which I think is why Clarice likes Lily. Think about it, like who does she bring in the second movie as a gift? You know what I mean? Like who is the person? Not her mom. The mom is later. It's specifically Lily, because I think they see eye to eye in that regard. I think like what you said like really vibed with me. Queen Clarice has seen so much damage, so much pain, and is still so regal, royal, beautiful, but she doesn't know this girl. She just knows the like what it is. She had an arranged marriage. She's lived in the royal family. You think anyone over in the palace is like coddling someone, being like, "Oh, sweetheart, you're gonna be princess"? No, fuck you. You should be so grateful. She should be so grateful for this moment right now. Like, I can walk away, you know what I mean? And like find someone else who's like actually wants this position, you know? She
Lord
puts
Devereaux.
Lord Devereaux. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. Like, she put the time, she puts the effort, and she has the love and compassion that raised her father. And she starts to like loosen up throughout the film as Mia starts to like gain composure of herself. You know what I mean? Because like Queen Clarice hasn't had family. Queen Clarice just lost her son. You know, she just lost her son. She's not the type of person who's going to show emotion, and now she has to deal with this girl who's so unfit to be princess, you know, and she's going to train her to be one. And like in the middle of it, she starts to feel like a grandma. You know what I mean? She starts to feel like a person who belongs to another human being, and their love for each other is so important. So when she like snaps at Mia for the guy, I understand her, because she's not coming at it from a sense of like, "Ugh, you're disgusting." She's coming at it from a sense of like, this looks so bad for our country. Because she grew up during a time where it's like, you think she could like say a single word without 15 people telling her like it was wrong, you know? And then Mia is in the tabloids kissing a guy, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
of course she's gonna be upset originally, but then when she sees that Mia's hurt and she sees that Mia was like taken advantage of, she steps in and becomes grandma. And I like that, like that I don't want to say duality, because I like the duality. I like the difference between the two of Queen Clarice and grandma, because in the second movie, she says that. She says in the second movie, she's like, as the queen, I blah blah blah.
I do
But
not own it, but as your grandmother, I say right on. Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like that only existed because in the first movie she discovered this compassion within herself of being a grandma.
And can I just say that the way you put it, doesn't it make so much sense that the person who brings out the compassion in her is Joe? Because he is the one who tells her, "You're harsh on your granddaughter."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's great to see, like, because it's one of those things where it's so their relationship is so interesting to me, and I love that that's who we see, because I feel like who knows how if it was her grandfather, because he's also going to look at it from a place of duty, like you said, he's not going to be the one to speak out like that. Joe's able to do that because he actually has the other side of it.
Because Joe is kind of more along. If it was grandpa, in my personal opinion, I think if it was grandpa, he and Mia would probably have butt heads a lot. But Joe is the perfect grandpa, let's call him that, grandpa, for Mia. And for anyone who has not seen this movie, like, of course, you're gonna be very confused right now. But Joe is perfect grandpa figure for Mia because he's the closest thing to Mia in this whole world. Someone who is not a part of the royal family, but who constantly lives in the royal life. And Mia is a part of the royal family, but was raised amongst people who are not. So if anyone is going to understand her and like her confusion of what to do, why is everyone telling me what to do, it's going to be Joe. Because even her mom can't relate to her and her grandma can't relate to her. Joe can.
Yeah.
And that's perfect characters.
It's
Like,
yeah. So
okay,
I think we went into all the characters for the
yeah.
movie.
And
But
we talked about the story.
if you were to make this now, what would you change?
So personally, I think this movie stands the test of time. I wouldn't change anything, personally. I wouldn't change anything. Even the things that we're saying are flaws, I think need to be there. Would probably be like the Mean Girls would be different in their meanness. But I wouldn't touch the movie because when I was watching the second movie, I thought to myself, I was like, wow, I think I would like to answer this question again when we get to the second movie.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
What about you? What about you? Do you have anything you would change?
Um, I would change the nice guy trope to fit more now of what we are seeing, because I don't want it, and not that I think many people walked away thinking, oh my god, Michael's a dreamboat or something like that, but they made it such a big deal that he saw her when no one else did, and I'm like, I feel like there's a lot more he could be doing besides just that, to just like my like not to the, it just needs to be the full scale of which what the nice guy trope is now, but just a few minor tweaks I feel like would help that character so much in terms of seeing um that area of it. But yeah, I think we'll keep going, but I think what we should do here is, I think this should be two parts because we did go for an hour.
Should we do like a, do we recommend this movie? Yes.
Yes, yeah, I was good. I think so. I think like 100%.
Okay. Sam.
I'm Belize. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Tune back in next week for Princess Diaries 2.
And remember, we are Heartbreaker Films. Please follow us on all of our socials and keep us up to date. And comment down below what your thoughts are. Would you change Michael? What do you think about Lily? Does anyone here actually dislike Queen Clarice and like point it out to us why? Because like clearly me and Belize like want this movie playing at our funerals. Like